Hi, this is David Gornoski, host of A Neighbor's Choice and Things Hidden podcast, as well as some of our other programs like Science and You with our chief science advisor, Dr. Yu, and our seed oil survival series that we continue to have great fun unpacking the truth of nutrition. I wanted to give you a quick little message saying we appreciate all the support that we get from our uh, monthly contributors and our one-time donation supporters. And we'd encourage all of you to go to our website, a neighborschoice.com, click on contribute, and make a monthly pledge today, whether it's $1, $5, 15, 20, 50, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter. Just be a part of building this new media project that we've developed to empower and inform, to inspire, to kickstart a scientific renaissance, an anthropological breakthrough and reformation in the church. All these things are possible with your support right now. So make that commitment today and help us keep doing the productions that we have. Thank you. Today we have a special episode of A Neighbor's Choice. Every show we do is special, but this one's really good because of we're going to look into another culture, what's going on in Argentina. We're going to look into the Latin American culture experience in general. We're going to understand what Javier Milei represents. And not just him as a person, because we're not interested in cults of personality. We want to know, what do these events have to do with our culture, with people's love of liberty, with people's love of private property and order and structure in society that is a flourishing foundation for any society to function. So to do that, I have someone who is creating he has created a YouTube channel called Javier Milei English, which is going to give people the English translation, the English window into what's going on in Argentina with the story of this man, what his movement represents. Federico Morales is my guest. How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you so much for having me, David. Appreciate you a lot. We have a friendship for a couple years, and it was through hard times through COVID. And
Yes.
a lot of what's happening with Milei has a lot to do with what the lockdowns of COVID brought to Argentina.
Yeah, what I appreciate about you is, yeah, you're right. We were going through those pandemic times together, and you're always got a cheery, positive attitude, always looking for opportunity and hope in every situation. So a lot of people are hopeful for what might be able to happen with Argentina. Some people are skeptical. I mean, people should rightly be skeptical of politicians. If we know anything
Definitely.
about human nature, power, absolute power corrupts, Lord Acton said. So we understand that there's a great temptation and there's a great dark reality behind the thrones of nations.
Yep,
The
they're
oligarchs,
criminals.
yeah, oligarchs are very controlling and very powerful and very dangerous. These are mafia type entities.
Yep.
So it's a miracle that anything good could come out of these things. And so my expectations of good out of any government is extremely low, if not sub-zero. Uh, but nevertheless, you always look for any kind of silver lining in the situation. So let's just start off. Why did you create this channel, Javier Milei English, on YouTube?
So, as you know, the libertarian philosophy comes back from the school of Salamanca in the 1500s. And what's happening now with Milei, he's a professor, he's worked in the private sector, he does not need the government to live a happy life. And so this is my take of what I read from listening to him for the last 6 years. And that pretty much tries to get him going. Yeah, so pretty much his presidency as a libertarian is the first time in history.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of thought process. As libertarians, there's three main thought process that goes behind. There's the anarchist libertarian, there's the minarchist libertarian, and there's the classical libertarian, maybe from the school of Chicago.
Yeah.
And Millet is a anarchist,
Yeah.
but because he lives in this world, he's a minarchist. So he's molding himself. The world we live in was not created by libertarian philosophies. A lot of what we are experiencing is kind of almost a Swiss cheese of faith and cultural shifts. So Milei is navigating that right now. As you know, like the latest thing that's happening right now is the omnibus laws and executive orders he's trying to get through. And from yesterday to today, they're blocked. The unions are blocking that right now, and that they submitted one of the bullet points is labor laws that he was modifying, and he went right to the um, judges, and there's four of them, so it could be a tie. So he's gonna bring all of this to light, and we're about to find out. He does believe in justice, and he's gonna leave those channels as they are. He's not gonna persecute what has happened in the past, but that doesn't mean others can't bring those cases. You know, things like the Kishners or other government officials.
Yeah. So let's start with what you just said. What is the omnibus? A lot of people in America are not familiar with the details. They just know of Milei's colorful YouTube memes and videos that circulate on Twitter and so forth. So
Yeah.
what do you mean? What is this omnibus thing that you're talking about? What's this?
So we might have to back up a little bit
Yeah.
because we have the executive order. So that brought up a lot of changes, and he did it very cleverly. It went hard on the 29th, right before the holidays. So nobody could really do anything, something that previous, because they weren't anybody, there was no law or no, they didn't go through. And then once it became hard, they went into holidays. And right now, they actually got called into a session, a special session. So they're not very happy. Since 22 years, this hasn't happened. They're not happy to have to work during summertime for the legislators there. So the omnibus actually makes all the executive order go through the judicial system.
Huh.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, he's done executive order. Is this the way he's gonna run the country? Well, this is just a start, right? He's been there 3 weeks, and he actually already placed the legislation on their table to make those changes, and that's the omnibus. So if a lot of people have seen the executive order, they call it DNU, you'll start seeing the correct process to make those stick, make it harder to go back to the communist Argentina that we know of.
So he's going to try to really gut the foundations of the past communistic, socialistic practices with this omnibus, right?
Yeah, that they
But
built.
it has to get it's like an executive order, and then he has to get their version of like a Supreme Court to review it.
Yep, exactly. And that's where he's tied up right now, because all the judges in every jurisdiction wants to have an opinion. And those opinions have values in the politic world, and then once it gets to the right channel, Milei will make sure he brings it up to light. And those judges will probably don't want to have the pressure of 56% of the vote of the people that are in favor of a positive change.
What exactly is he proposing here? What are some of the highlights that you could share with us?
Yeah, so one thing that stuck out for me, they're reforming 136 laws that stuck around since the dictatorship times. So Latin America went through dictatorships in the 70s, 80s, and a lot of these are back. If we even speak earlier, let's go back to the 1930s when we didn't know what system was going to work, the socialist or communist or the capitalist. The US, really what they did was stick with the demand side and don't fool around with the supply side. Meaning, if you're sending money, give it to the consumer. Don't give it to the cronies that are putting together the hospitals, the different road systems, or the school system, because it's like you're going to pay European taxes and have an African type style for your population of services. And that's kind of what developed from the 1930s. They have the Peronism. They decided to go the middle of the road. Instead of going communist or going capitalist, they decided to do their version basket case, because they come from being rich back then, and the world really didn't know what was going to happen. And they just chose a road that's been very bumpy, right?
Yeah. So they've gone down this route of dictatorship in the past, and this proposal he's trying to push through the judicial system will gut the ability for that type of dictatorship type power to continue in the future, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's been a huge cultural shift in Argentina, and I think was represented by the votes that he just got.
Yeah.
And this started 2 to 3 years ago. The politicians told him in live TV, there's nothing you can do about it, on his face. Because 2018, he didn't think he was interested at all. He was celebrating the other guy, libertarian guy. He's more classical, Chicago boy. His name is Espert. He's an economist. And they were celebrating in New York City, libertarians. And he said, no, I'm not going to run. I'm cool. And fast forward just a few months of people challenging him, because, one thing is you can talk the talk and structure everything. Another thing is getting in the dirty field of politics.
So tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about Javier Milei's background. What can you tell us about his childhood? What can you tell us about
that? So his dad was a bus driver. He built up his little business, maybe a little franchise. I don't know, maybe 5 buses or something with his mom. From there, he at age of 11, he became very interested. Prices were going up in Argentina. And he was like, well, if there's prices going up, you would see demand dry up. So he saw that click, that the thought process was wrong on the actual economics thought process, more like Keynesian or that type. So he started studying it. And actually, Argentina actually has the highest per capita economists because of all the problems they have had with currency and monetary. So from there, at age 11, he also was a rock star, not a rock star, but he likes the Rolling Stones. He progressed on his education, always on the economic.
How old is he, by the way? Is he in his 50s or 40s?
56, maybe, somewhere around there.
56?
56, maybe.
So he's kind of like a Gen Xer then in his age. So then he goes to college for economics. Is that right?
Yep. A very young, I think at age 16, he wrote his first academic paper.
Yeah.
From there, he played soccer, but he quit playing soccer so he could devote more to the field of economics. That was his really passion.
When did he become a libertarian anarchist, or did he become a libertarian and then an anarchist later, or what? What do we know?
So he got the books of Rothbard. The critics, even libertarians, can be very critical to our own thought. So we're not a herd. We all think differently. That's why it's very important to kind of rank those 3 general philosophies or ideas within the libertarian. So the worst critic libertarian I heard was like 2015. So he taught a whole career in universities in Argentina things that now he would probably need to reprimand. And I think that's probably driven that he needs to fix a lot of those things. He actually is very passionate. So let's say he got introduced to the library of libertarians in Argentina, because Argentina even had Hayek back when the meeting of Hayek in Argentina was right at the point before he got the Nobel Prize. Alberto Venegas Lynch, hijo, so he's the son of the guy that did that. And Hayek went there for free, even though he was a Nobel Prize to speak in Argentina. So Argentina does have a lot of libertarians, but they make a joke that you could fit them in an elevator at the time through, let's call it up all the way up to 2018. And now they represent, we're going to start seeing the shifts. Right now, I would think the biggest thing to watch for is the next 2 years. If he does any minor changes and people are happy, right now he has like 107% approval rating of what the direction he's heading.
107%.
Yeah, because he climbed that much.
Oh, okay. It's 107% growth.
Higher, yeah. I think that's the way I read it. There's so many intricacies and so much information. It would take a full-time person to go through it. I have a family. I work full-time. I have our own business my wife runs.
Yeah.
So this is just like a passion of, I've been knowing about the philosophy for 15 years, and the Argentina journey was watching Macri fail, and I was very interested to what
Who's
happened.
that? Who's that again?
Macri,
Yeah.
that was the last president in 2015-ish.
Okay.
He was more of a conservative, but
Okay.
he surrounded himself with socialists, and he really didn't know how to execute. So he got the normal thing that happens in politics. Yeah, he was a businessman, kind of, from a rich family in Argentina. But that was a shift.
Is Javier Milei's cabinet looking like it's strong, or is he surrounded himself with a bunch of?
So I'm gonna go off a lot of what I read or
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
listen.
yeah.
What's
You're like our
happening?
translator to figure out what's going on over there, right?
Yeah,
You're
what's
helping us
happening
see.
is the libertarian critics, which is our own people, would say um, he was talking the talk, libertarian talk, when he was coming up on popularity. And as he put his cabinet together, he surrounded himself with the Wall Street type. But what I can say is the country wasn't put together by libertarians right now. It's put together by the political class with different philosophies. They've been subsidizing offer, meaning politicians get paid from the state from corruption. So there's a mixed bag of problems with it. I would call it faith, right? They're using a faith that it has proven to fail, because once we look at the economic freedom index, they're at the bottom of the chart.
Yeah, yeah.
So their faith is broken. They're trying to reestablish that, and it's going to be a journey. Probably the journey will be fast, 10 years, but it's going to be 30 years to get back to where they were in.
How many years can he serve as president?
So he's probably going to be there 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it will, because it's a cultural shift, and the faith portion of the population will be increasing. As I think in the next 24 months, you'll see the inflation be under control, probably a
Faith
little
in
earlier.
what? Faith in the economy, like trust in the economy, or
Faith
you
in
mean?
the beliefs of everything from politics to science to their own economy.
So
Everything's
right now they're just very demoralized in
very
Argentina.
demoralized.
Yeah.
Let's say they thought in the 30s or the 80s, the 90s, their faith was based of facts, right? Like nobody has gone out there and measured the circumference of the earth. And they came up with all these principles thinking that's the way to go. We're going to do great. And it's not, right? Right now they have 3,000% inflation, is 1% per day. And
So how
that
do you live in that economy? What does that look like?
is barter, probably a lot of barter. A lot of the legislation he placed is so the contracts don't really have a currency denomination, because they're
Yeah, but
trying
how do you get like higher level goods manufactured and developed in that kind of economy? Because you can't really barter with that. That's a lot of, you know what I mean?
yeah, they
It's
have
like
a
a
very
pencil
basic.
even, like
They're
no
doing really
food.
bad. I mean, people who have money, they figure it. People who don't have money, they just need to fill the fridge to survive before the inflation. Because the high inflation, the person who gets the dollar first
Yeah.
is the one that takes the greatest advantage. As the liquidity goes in the hierarchy, it kind of the last person, which is the labor, gets the peanuts. So that's who suffers the most. They have 60% of the children in poverty right now.
Wow.
And
So
that's pretty bad, because you got to
is there a
have
lot of
human
crime right
level.
now going on there?
What's that?
Is there a lot of crime?
Yes. So, socialists kind of agree with light-handed on petty crime,
Yeah.
but that has the broken window fallacy, right? Once you start having those issues, and they're pretty soft in that regard, we probably need to speak more of the El Salvador, Bukele. They locked up 70,000 gang members, and now you can go out and sell a balloon and be all right. And they dollarized in the 90s, right? I believe. So there's been progress in different areas. I bring up El Salvador because they have civil wars past the 90s.
Is Milei gonna do some tough on crime stuff like what El Salvador is doing on crime? Or
Yes.
no?
So yeah, the law is going to be abide by. That's what he says. But he's not going to do the work. He's going to let the laws that they already have in place do the work. because they have laws that they don't follow themselves, because the police or different structures of government aren't allowed, or they're not backed up. They might not be having, they don't even have the financing properly to do things like a nation would.
Yeah. What are there cartels that run a lot of Argentina, like in other countries?
I don't know those things.
Mm.
Doesn't really come much, I would think, to an extent. I don't
Mm.
think probably to the Mexican extent, not that I know a lot about that. But I do know, like in Ecuador, the crime has spiked fivefold in 4 or 5 years. So
Wow.
we're gonna, but Ecuador actually fixed, since the 90s, they fixed the problem, and now they spiked it again because they went lenient. Kind of
Mhm.
like a scenario from New York City.
Yeah.
They kind of reform it and then it spikes depending on who comes in and out. So these things are well documented.
Is there a lot of the woke identity politics about race and gender over there in
Yeah.
Argentina?
Yeah, they have a lot of that. They're kind of the thought leaders on that, probably. You know,
Really?
the club of the Puebla Club, the Foro de San Pablo, Lula, Chavez, and Fidel Castro, they've been organized.
Yeah.
But going back to the history, like of Latin America in the 1980s, these people we were having high inflation, just
Right.
like here. But here you say 20%. In Latin America, you could say anything from 1,000 to 100 to 1,000% inflation. So these criminals, terrorists, they grab a passport, go to another country, get a passport, visa, go to the next country, like the Soviets back then. You know, like Russia, Palestine, or Bolivia. It could be close or far, and get trained on terrorist tactics. They will blow up banks in Uruguay. You know, this is like Mojica. He's very popular, but that's how he ended up with a party. He during the dictatorship, they didn't have a party or any representation. So after all that cleaned up, they ended up with a party, and somewhat Uruguay's been stable, you know, since 2003. That was their last recession, and all the people want is just stability. And right now, Uruguay ranks on the place 27 of economic freedom. So I think they're okay. And US in the other side has come down in the last 10, 20 years from the top 10.
Yeah.
It's in the 20s, low, you know,
So
25th.
what's the story on the dollarization of Argentina? Is that going to happen or has that been put off?
So I'm pretty sure that's not going to be debatable. He's going to head in that direction. So the first portion is the people he's surrounded by now, they're the ones, let's call it the portion of stabilizing.
Hmm.
And these are the people that have been around those politics, they have reviewed the laws, and they know how to navigate the reform process. Once this gets more open, so they're trying to open up to the labor. They got to open up labor and trade before they take a lot of apparatus that are keeping the economy contained, like different containers. Because if they open up in the wrong dimension, these people could go from 60%, 50% poverty all the way to 90% poverty. So they're very, very careful on what they're going to touch first. And the dollarization is going to be a later process. It could be 24 months, because remember, you're going to see the legislation change. For example, Bukele, he got in government with no backup in Congress. 2 years later, I think he had a majority. So all these shifts are going to take a while, but I think in the next 4 years we'll see big changes in Argentina. Right now, their real estate is crushed. They probably have the cheapest real estate in the world if you're looking at the better places, right? But there's a lot of messed up legislation there.
What about the Bitcoin? Is he going to allow people to use Bitcoin? Has that happened, or is
So it's
that
going to
going
be
to
even
happen?
better. It's going to have it might be the first country that I know of. Once it becomes debated, I'll probably know more, of open currency. So I don't know if you follow some of the people who speak we're in a depression at the moment, and it comes from the growth of GDP has been stagnant since like 2008, so the financial crisis. So if we subscribe to that, we could say maybe the next portion of the euro dollar or Bitcoin, the next development in currency could happen in Argentina after the legislation or the groundwork is put in place. because he's going to have open currency. You could actually trade with any currency. So the dollarization portion comes on the portion of the balance sheet of the government or the central bank. It's in pesos. It's junk. Nobody wants it. It actually stabilized at the moment, and the country risk, which is the credit risk, has actually stabilized. But until that portion is not on the other side, it's going to be a dollarization to clean up the mess of the debts of the government, and then the dollarization is just because Argentina hold, I think it's China, Russia, and Argentina hold the largest supplies of dollar bills. Their dollar bills are serialized, so the Fed knows where they are. They're under the mattress. Each Argentina has about $1,600 in their mattresses. So they're already chosen their currency. It's just a matter of letting them function. In Venezuela, with COVID and different things, they had massive electric shutdowns, and the people went out to the streets with dollars, even though it's illegal. So in a lot of these economies that are destroyed, people are just trying to survive. It's a lot of it is a black market, what we would consider. It's not a white. Over there they call it blanco or negro, to say the legal way, and the black market.
What about the gold and silver? Would he allow people to use gold and silver as legal tender?
Yeah, he wouldn't have a problem at all.
Do you think he's actually going to do that? Do you think he has a plan?
It's going to be open currency.
Have you read anything and anything about that?
Gold and silver? He talked about it a lot. He's been talking about that for the last couple of years.
To use gold and silver as a competing currency?
No. Gold and silver, as far as I understand it, you can do it. But the problem with it, like if you were to apply that in the US, the cost of that to the economy would be like 4% of the GDP. So currency, money-wise, is cheaper to use a currency, right? Paper. It's only like 1% of the GDP, supposedly. I'm not a professional, so a lot of things is what the research I've done in my part-time because of my interest.
So gold and silver, he's said that he would legalize it as a competing currency?
No. It would be open currency. You could go there with any currency, and as long as there's an exchange or make it work or a contract, you can make it feasible. So it could be.
Could you buy and sell? You can buy and sell your groceries and gold like silver coin, and that would be.
But that's pretty dangerous, to be carrying around gold, and it's heavy and different things. Like history has already came from there. Yeah. Probably in the evolution of money, I doubt we're going to go back. But if people want to do it, they will be able to.
You think Bitcoin will be the future currency of Argentina if it goes in that direction?
I don't think they're going to choose that. Bitcoin is not elastic. Maybe once the technology progresses, maybe they'll choose something. But I don't think Bitcoin is quite there. Maybe once a lot of products and liquidity and elasticity is in place, maybe it'd be great. But that escapes my knowledge or crystal ball. Yeah. I'm kind of just speaking of things that are known.
Let's go back to Javier Milei. How does he get his, what he's most known for in America is his charisma. So tell me about his philosophy, how he developed that style of his.
So I think he
mentions that word he says, afuera.
Afuera. So he says a lot of it was developed by being the goalie in a soccer team. He's the only one that can use his hands in a soccer game. And then he also speaks a lot of the rock star singer. He likes opera too. And actually, in the 2015s or so, 1918s, he actually had theater. So he performed, and the performance was based on economics, and they made fun of, tried to make light of the economic problems they have. They call it Javier Milei, something about the doctor office of Javier Milei or something like that.
This was in what? This was on a TV show or a
theater? You could go to the theater. You could buy a ticket and go see it live.
And he was critiquing the economy.
Yeah. He has whole books critiquing Kirchner's and the Keynesians and a lot of good things. I haven't gone through all 26 books or however many he has, or academic books.
He has something about the 5-second knockout. Tell me about that.
Yes, right. The 5-second knockout. So he was a little bit coached starting on early on as he was going into TV or maybe even radio early on. He was told to hit the interviewer hard with controversial subjects. If there are thieves in politics, they're thieves. The economy is going to blow up. It's gonna blow up. It's just a matter of time. We don't know when. Kind of call things by what they are. Don't sugarcoat it. And if you can be clever about it and have different things, they do it, and people remember that. In Argentina, they know money or inflation is a monetary phenomenon. The taxi driver can tell you that in Argentina.
So they're actually pretty educated. Is it because of their studying of libertarian thought, or is it
They're
just
coming
kind
up.
of just real
How
world
popular it
knowledge?
got. How popular it got. There's this guy. He's the province like mayor or something in Buenos Aires, Alex Kichilov. He had one of my videos had quite a bit of views, and I'm kind of intrigued what triggered the views for Americans. So Kichilov was like in a bar, but the setting was like a bar. He was being interviewed, and somebody challenged him to explain why it wasn't a monetary phenomena. Because they're like, if that's the case, just print all the money, and so we become rich right here and then. Right on his face. So it was very interesting. He's out of the Kirchner side or Peronism side of things.
Is
So
The Kishners are on the Peronism thing? That's the same.
yeah, they claim, a lot of people claim, but as libertarian, like we have three main different flavors. They probably
Yeah.
have so many flavors, and they're purists and who aren't so much, and on each subject. Like there's libertarians that are pro-abortion and some are against. It's not a herd. They have the same things on their own. And I'm not very well versed because I'm not very on the socialism side. But
The Kitcheners are typically socialist, corrupt, crony capitalist types.
yeah,
Yeah.
nationalist, protectionist. And it shows. It shows in the data. That's where they are. It could be a similar thing to like New York City or California, or we could even go to Europe and maybe a Berlin or Germany or
Yeah.
UK. They had a great opening to the free markets during the Brexit, and they ruined it.
So why do you think radical anarcho-capitalist libertarian politics was so quickly able to win the presidency of Argentina, and yet the Libertarian Party and libertarian style Republicans do not perform that well here in America?
So let's go with the Republicans, and I can actually put it in line by line with what happened with Argentina. The Argentinian, what happened during the elections in Argentina, you had the libertarian, the conservative, and the left. To make it simple. So on the run-up, Milei and the left, and then the conservative. Milei made up really well if he would have the conservatives with him, but they decided to go on their own. During that period, that conservatives broke down per se. Once what happened is the radicals left and went to the left, and the people who want something prosperity and liberty, they went to the right. They're represented now in that 56% of votes that Milei got for a better Argentina. So the conservatives here have radicals. Who they are, I'm not in touch with US politics, but yeah, I live in Florida, but US politics kind of escaped me. I don't think we're at the point of something changing, as bad as things are. But in Argentina, what happened is what triggered the change is people got locked down for a couple of years, and they were brutal. So people were locked up, not going to education, to school, get indoctrinated. I have a trouble pronouncing that word. And then they were started watching the videos because they already have the highest per capita economist. So they were already circulating, and it's pretty entertaining to see a lot of the encounters when they do have freedom of speech. The thing is, with lockdowns, they had locked up. So now they started watching the videos, learning a lot. They know something's broken, and they started kind of following different philosophies. That's when I said they're breaking down the faith they had of measure, the system they have. They know they're not doing well. Because if you talk to a grandparent, we know Argentina was rich. How is it that now they're 10 times worse than the US when they were competing? So they know they made wrong choices based on crazy faith and politics per se. kind of like a Swiss cheese. We really don't know where we are till we kind of see something. So they got locked up. They started learning. Their kids or young people are more biased to status quo. So they saw something that needed to change. Milei was out there speaking on television, very catchy, and they caught on. And they went speaking to their parents during the lockdowns, and then they went speaking to their grandparents. And if they didn't change their faith per se, these kids were gonna leave the country. So nobody wants to lose their kids. I'm an immigrant. They don't. You should just leaving everything behind. You know, not everybody can leave the country. Mom's staying behind. Grandma stays behind.
These are college age kids that said, "Look,
yeah,
we went
kind of
through
what happened in Russia,
lockdown.
right?
We had our lives ruined. If you don't put this kind of radical reform from this guy in, we're not going to be here because this country's not worth anything at that point, right?" That's
Yeah,
what they're saying.
Milei is the last line of defense from the radicals.
Well, I think this is all great lessons that we can take back from these events happening in Argentina and apply them to our country. And I hope that things don't get so bad like they are in Argentina before people get some sanity back.
Yeah, I mean,
have monetary freedom.
You've seen strong patterns of migration in the U.S. So there's deep things happen in the U.S. So people are moving around to more like-minded places. A lot of this that I speak of faith, some people speak of it like a cultural shift. Yeah. And, you know, because they're speaking of the 21st century socialism, because these ideas kind of get, they always change, you know. A lot of things that Milei brought up is from the fall of the Berlin Wall. They always reinvent themselves. And they carry like this legacy, you know, the Club of Rome. We have the Club de Puebla, you know, the Foro San Pablo. They just change, and they're the international socialists. They're subsidized by governments, so their ideas probably aren't the best. And you know, economics are just people and value, and that's why it's so interesting to me.
Do you think cryptocurrency is going to have a big role to help people in America, or do you don't think so?
Maybe it will. I don't know. Depends on legislation, I guess, if it's legal or not, and then to what
do you
extent.
think about CBDCs, central banking digital currencies? What do you think of these?
So the ledger's been banking has been digital for a long time, right? And supposedly so that's the centralized banking, right? That's been like that, digitalized forever. Now we're talking the CBDC. What's the acronym stand for?
Yeah, central bank digital currency.
Yeah, the digial currency.
It's like a digital token from these banks like JP Morgan and stuff.
So I'm sure they're going to be reinventing their wheel, to do whatever they need to do. But it's yet to be written, right? Because they got to be very careful if something fails to their great scheme in the social science of how things break down. They might not be so happy. You know, some of these things have like a balance to them. They can push very hard, but I doubt they're going to push their luck. It's a major world economy. There's nobody really competing against the U.S. I kind of think that's why there's a breakdown of where the U.S. was heading, you know, on liberty per se, because it has a strong foundation. It's not like we're speaking of Argentina. They still had legislation from the dictatorship.
So you think it's the lack of market competition that makes America lose its liberty?
Yeah. I mean, who is there around in the Americas to compete against the U.S., right?
So they can get lazy on their own foundational principles of private contract and property and liberty.
Yeah, people don't watch the economic index that we're declining. People just know there's some problems. But there's a new layer of problems from where people come from, right? Our ancestors. My grandpa and my dad, you know, I believe everybody comes from nothing. We didn't have money, right? Production, labor, you know, meritocracy. What is it when we?
Yeah, meritocracy.
Meritocracy. You know, we invest or we protect our assets, our family, our friends, our community. That's when we grow. In Argentina, even here, the power lines were put in by municipalities, you know, probably private capital put it in. That's why we have all these little power plants in
Yeah.
Florida, right? In Central Florida.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, they get taken over by bigger companies, but maybe there's more efficiency. But eventually, if they do things wrong, they do collapse eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time. We got to get back to allowing losses to be privatized and instead of socializing the losses so that people can reap the
Yeah.
benefit of market, dynamics again,
Yeah, it's pretty complicated because people are subsidizing others with theft money already, right?
Yeah.
So politicians are offering something and they're getting paid by theft. It's going to be a while before things turn.
Yeah.
The scientists, different industries don't have the right incentives, and
That's true.
people we're attacked with marketing constantly, whether it's our health, our investments, even our faith, right? And
Yeah.
we're getting twisted and turned, and it's
Yeah.
going to be a while to figure out things that are taking us to the next level. We live industrialized, high production. It's going to be a while, and
Yeah.
but there's people that are going to start challenging things only because it's been our generation has suffered from some of these things. Doesn't mean other countries are going to take it to the next level because they are a breaking point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Federico, and I want people to check out your YouTube channel, Javier Milei English, on
Awesome. Thank you so
YouTube.
much.
Subscribe to it if you want to follow what's going on and get the English translations and stories about what's happening in that country. So check it out, folks. Thank you.
Appreciate it, dude. Take care.
And if you want to be in touch with us at A Neighbor's Choice, you can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.